Welcome in, everyone, to a special edition, the Voice of College Football here, WVU. We hope that you are already subscribed to the channel. If not, I think that's something you'll want to do because we bring content creators here that know their West Virginia football, love to discuss it with all of you. We've got a weekly show. We've got post game. We've got all sorts of good stuff, including what we're going to do tonight here at the Voice of College Football. As Mountaineers are 4-1. So Neil Brown has removed himself from the hot seat for now. And I got to thinking, hey, I know so many good West Virginia folks that know their team, know their program, and I'd like to get their input on where this West Virginia football team stands, the program, and the outlook, and what this 4-1 start means. We're going to bring in Joey Foster. We got Jordan coming in as well from Country Roads. Gentlemen, how we doing tonight?
Doing great,
well.
Mark.
All right, so let's get ramped up on this one. You can join Joey on Twitter, Dr. Joseph Foster, and also Jordan's right here at the Voice of College Football after each and every West Virginia Mountaineers game, and then also on Country Roads. And you will see his information pop up here in just a few minutes. So let's get this ramped up because it just struck me the other day. I thought the media picked this team to go 14th, even with 4 new teams coming to the Power 5, picked this team to go 14th, dead last in the Big 12, and they're defying that right now. They've won 3 consecutive games against Power 5 teams, and their loss, Jordan, is certainly no shame in that, losing to Penn State. They're tearing it up right now and expected to continue. So are you surprised, Jordan, at the 4-1 start?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit surprised about the 4-1. I think, in our season prediction show, I had us 3-2 coming out of September, and I thought I was being a little optimistic there. So even I didn't see the 4-1 start coming. So I know a lot of Mountaineer fans probably didn't, but you mentioned them being picked 14th in the preseason, and that's really been a rallying cry for this team. And I thought that they had a chance, throughout the offseason leading up to it, to use some of the stuff that was, being said about them throughout the offseason as bulletin board material, be it being picked last there in the media poll, as you mentioned, or the quarterback ranking that came out of all Power 5 quarterbacks that had Garrett Green near the bottom. Their win total on DraftKings was like 4.5. Their conference win total was like 3.5, I think. So they were being doubted a lot from, the outside. But I think, if you watched this team last season and saw some of the things they did towards the end of the year, you could maybe see the writing on the wall of some improvement coming down the line if the defense would, come around. And it has in a big way. I think, you mentioned surprise, and maybe the biggest surprise has been the defense, outplaying the offense to lead to this 4-1 start. But it's certainly a surprise, but definitely a pleasant surprise for Mountaineer fans.
What do you say, Joey?
I agree. Yeah. I think beginning of the season, I had us losing to Penn State and Texas Tech. I did not. I thought we would beat Pitt. Just because of backyard brawl and home field advantage, and I thought we could beat TCU this year because I felt like TCU was going to be down before the year started. So I felt like TCU was going to be down, and I felt like we could beat them. So I was the same way as Jordan here. I was thinking, okay, 3-2 coming out of September. But 4-1 is even better, and I'll take that win over Texas Tech any day when I picked it to lose. But being picked 14th in the conference, I never understood that at all. With 4 newcomers, and we had to play all 4 of the newcomers, I felt like we could beat 3 of them. I felt like UCF might be the one game we would lose between the 4 newcomers. But now it's not even look like we'll lose that, but you never know. So I'm excited about this team. Most importantly, like Jordan said, I'm excited in our defense. I mean, we had a very good defense. Well, we had a decent defense in 2019, a very good defense in 2020. Kind of slacked off a little bit in 2021, but not much. 2022 was absolutely horrible. And this year, the one place we thought we was going to have a lot of trouble was the defensive backs. And we got a bunch of transfers in, and them transfers are playing. I mean, they're playing hard. And so I'm very excited about our defense right now. So, yeah, I agree with Jordan and everything he said there. That 100% spot on.
You guys know I'm going to play some devil's advocate here.
Of
So
course.
Pitt went 9-4, won a bowl game last year, won the ACC championship game 2 years ago. Pat Narduzzi had that thing going for a while, but they've been just pretty bad. 4 straight losses against Power 5 teams, lost to Cincinnati, just haven't been good. Phil Jurkovec has not worked out at quarterback. So Pitt hasn't, and probably hit rock bottom this past weekend. They lost to Virginia Tech by 3 scores, and Virginia Tech had lost 9 straight Power 5 games. So there's a win there, but you do what you're supposed to do, and you win the game. The Texas Tech game, again, they were oversold to most of us, and I was on that bandwagon to a certain extent too. They had a nice season, won a bowl game against Ole Miss last year, had their starting quarterback and a lot of talent coming back. They lost to Wyoming. They haven't looked great for the most part. They have won some games. They beat Houston last week. TCU, as Joey mentioned, certainly nothing close to what they were last year, and everybody knew that, but they were still a preseason top 25 team, but they may not be that even. So there are some wins baked in there to a certain extent. So I don't want to downgrade this, but what I'm really looking for here and pulling all this together is you got Neil Brown on the hot seat. Well, let's take it before that, because Joey and I talk about this from time to time. I don't think I know the average college football fan doesn't give West Virginia its historical place due. Does not at all. I throw numbers around that people just can't believe in terms of major bowl wins, major bowl appearances, top 15 in all-time wins. People just, they don't know that. And so I don't think people realize, whether you're going through, obviously, Don Nehlen, Coach Stewart, on through the line, Rich Rodriguez, of course, of the heights that West Virginia, and not just the heights, the consistency of winning 8-9 ball games when they're not even reaching those heights. So it's been a historically strong program. And I don't know that people get that. So what Neil Brown's doing up until this season is historically bad in modern times. And so he was firmly on the hot seat to a certain extent. Now, to what degree, we don't know what's going through the administration's mind and Ren Baker's mind in terms of where that leash is. And how strong it is. So they come out of the chute at 4-1. I'm trying to get some perspective on whether, Jordan, you believe that this program has truly changed. Is this an indicator of true change, true ascension, or just a flash in the pan? They were able to put together a decent run of football.
I've had a lot of West Virginia fans ask me that question, and my answer has just kind of been, it really just depends on, which side of the coin you want to look at. Do you want to be optimistic or do you want to be pessimistic? Because, the questions presented to me, we're winning this despite, losing on the stat sheet. Is this sustainable? Can they continue this throughout a whole season? And, my response to that is, you can look at it that way if you want, but you can also look at it to the fact that West Virginia hasn't really put together their best game yet, especially offensively, and haven't played a complete game really defensively yet. And despite that, they're still playing well. I know you mentioned some of the teams, struggling more than they were predicted preseason, but still yet Texas Tech has scored over 30 points in every game, save for West Virginia. TCU has scored over 30 points in every game, save for West Virginia. So the defense is, holding these teams more than their other opponents have in those contests. But so I think West Virginia, if you're looking optimistically, you can say that there's a lot of young players in this offense that are only going to get better. Freshmen are making plays for the Mountaineers in crucial situations. You look at Jaheim White at the running back position, receivers Rodney Gallagher, Hudson Clement. All 3 of those guys are freshmen, and they were making critical plays for West Virginia in the win against TCU. But I think from a Mountaineer fan perspective, you can look at it just this way and kind of look at it through a West Virginia lens, because you want to see improvement from Neil Brown. And, the run, as you mentioned, was a historically bad run these previous 4 years. So you want to see improvement looking at this year. And just comparing this year to last year, the bye week came after 5 games, just like this season. West Virginia was 2-3 last year. They're 4-1 this year. And then even looking beyond that, you can dive into the numbers and see some of the ways that West Virginia is winning. the way that they're doing it, it took a long time to get the culture there, to get people to play this way that they're trying to play to win these games. It takes a lot of buy-in for the way that West Virginia is doing it with this physical style, just trying to manhandle their opponents, for lack of a better term. But I've compared it to like the old Bill Snyder Kansas State teams. And I think that we're finally seeing what we were promised when Neil Brown was hired come to fruition this season, because he was presented to us as a coach that focuses on the little details, does everything right, and he's going to give you a team that won't beat themselves, and thus makes it really hard for you to beat them if they don't turn the ball over. They commit low penalties, and we hadn't seen that over the first 4 years. But this year, you can look at it on the stat sheet. West Virginia has only committed 18 penalties through 5 games. Last year, through that 5-game stretch, they had 34 penalties. And then beyond that, through the first 2 games, they had 19. So furthermore, even if you want to look even beyond that, West Virginia had 5 or more penalties in 4 out of those 5 games last season. This year, they've had 5 or less in every single game, and the most they've had in a game was 5 against Penn State. So they're doing the little things right, and I think you're seeing that improve for Neil Brown, and that's why you're seeing this team improve, is because you're finally seeing the things that you were promised about Neil Brown come to fruition so far this season. And you just got to hope that it continues if you're a Mountaineer fan.
Looks like a banner I made a long time ago when we had Neil Brown on, thanks to Joey here. But I better correct that record. It's getting a lot better than that at this point.
That's right.
Very nice.
26 and 26, if I'm not mistaken. Finally got it to 500, so hopefully just continues to be over 500 now.
Absolutely. Joey, how bad do West Virginia fans want to win the next one?
Oh, definitely bad. I mean, it's probably, I think everybody knows, especially me. I'm not a fan of Dana Holgorsen. Never was a fan of Dana Holgorsen. Dana Holgerson's a great offensive coordinator. He's just not that great of a head coach. He has trouble recruiting. He doesn't care about defense. And you can win a game with offense, but defense wins championships. And we was never in that hunt under Dana Holgorsen. I mean, we had our shots, right? We had our shot in 2012, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018, but we couldn't get there. So Dana at Houston now, he's got a better recruiting base right down there in Texas, but he still is up in the 70s and 80s in recruiting, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so that tells you how bad a recruiter he is. And so, at West Virginia, he just couldn't seem to get the players. Neil Brown's doing a great job of recruiting. But to touch on what we was talking about a while ago, it's also a year of first. It's like first year of West Virginia or Neil Brown beat Pitt, right? So we beat Pitt. That was a first. Then he won 2 in a row, which was a first. Then we won 3 in a row, it was a first. Now we've won 4 in a row, which is a first. I mean, and then beating TCU at home when Sonny Dykes hadn't lost a home game since he's been there, a first. So I'm pretty excited about this team. I know we're not I don't think we'll win the conference by any stretch of imagination. I think we'll finish probably 4th or 5th. But at the same time, it's such an improvement already in what we had last year that I think every fan is excited. And Neil Brown, who was on the hot seat for the first time this year, is off the hot seat for the first time. And so, we've got a lot of firsts going on at West Virginia. Now, let's go down and beat Houston. First time we'll meet Houston. And we're playing in Houston because the Big 12 lost its mind and somehow sent that game to Houston instead of Morgantown, which makes no sense. But at the same time, I'm excited about going down there and playing the Fighting Holgersons and taking them to town. TCU uses a pass to set up the run. West Virginia uses the run to set up the pass. And under Dana Holgorsen, we used to use the pass to set up the run, just like TCU does, just like Houston does right now. We did not have a good first half against TCU, and I think we'll struggle first half against Houston as well, just for that reason. But we shut TCU down in the second half, completely shut them down. They had 1 yard of offense in the third quarter, 1 yard. And we just completely shut them down. And I think we'll do that same thing to Houston next week. So I'm not so worried about that game. Mr. Coos.
Yes, there he is.
Hey,
Justin
Coos.
Walker. Coos, what's going on, man?
Another day in paradise, as they say.
There it is.
I will skedaddle out of here, let you guys have your show. And and sit back and watch and be in the chat. All right, guys?
Appreciate it, Joey.
Good to see
All
you,
right,
Joey.
thanks, guys. See y'all
Good to see
later.
you, Joey.
See you later, Coos.
Well, Coos, as I set up the show a few minutes ago and led in with Joey and Jordan, I said, this 4-1 start caught my eye, and I thought, well, I got some really good West Virginia folks to get to find out how valid this is. We kind of brushed through the first 5 games, especially the 4 against Power 5 teams, obviously, and for as ugly as maybe that Penn State final score looked to some people, if you watch the game, it's not like West Virginia exactly got dragged around the field. It was a competitive game. So at 4-1, how much stock are you placing in what they've been able to do so far?
I think it's a lot. I mean, I think it, number one, they have finally established an identity, which this team badly needed. And I think the identity matches what West Virginia football was during their successful years with Neyland and Rodriguez and even the year we had under Holgorsen where we won 10 games, we were a running football team. We had Skylar Howard here in 2015, I believe it was. We won 10 games that year, and we ran the football about 60% of the time. I think that's the only couple years under Holgorsen we did that, and it happened to be 2 of our better seasons. So West Virginia, historically, when they're good, they are more of a physical running football team who can play some defense. And I think we've gotten back to that finally. So because of that, I have confidence that we can continue to win. I overheard Jordan say, we're not going to win or Joey rather, that we're not going to win the Big 12. I agree with that. But I do think we can win 9, maybe even, if things bounce our way, maybe even 10 football games this year.
So Neil Brown has basically, if what you guys are forecasting, he has saved himself, saved his job. And where did I'll start with you, Coos. Where did you stand on Neil Brown to start as a hire? And then coming into this season, where did you stand on his ability to get this thing turned around?
In the beginning, when he was hired, I thought it was a home run because you look at, he's from Kentucky, which share, a similar culture that we have here in West Virginia, coal mining region, Appalachian Mountains, that whole thing, right? So I felt like that was a fit. 2, you looked at his success at Troy, 3 straight 10-win seasons. He was one of the most highly touted group of 5 coaches out there. So I felt like, you add all that together, he obviously he won the press conference, right? Which is one of the first things you look for in a coach. He checked every box from the beginning. He went and started visiting all the highly touted in-state kids that we had here at West Virginia, which Dana Holgorsen had not done. Was almost able to flip one, who, by the way, ended up being a first-round draft pick. But yeah, I mean, he was checking every box. So I thought it was a great hire. And I think the national media even agreed with that. And then fast forward to the beginning of this season, I'll be honest with you. I felt like they probably should have made a change after last season. When I saw that they weren't going to, I decided to stick by Coach Brown and support him and the team. And now I'm glad I did because it looks like it could pay off. Now, it's still a long way to go. But the way this team's playing right now, they're playing inspired football. You can tell they want to win for him, that they want to play for him. And I think maybe now that he has the kind of guys he wants to play with to fit his culture, then I think we have a much better chance to succeed now going forward.
Yeah, I was right there, right along with you, Coos, pretty much. Last season, I was not necessarily 100%, I wasn't screaming fire Neil Brown or anything, but I wasn't against the move. But once, like you said, once they decided not to, just get back in this corner, root for the Mountaineers, always going to cheer for the wins no matter what. And so and the thing that I've been saying, all along, and I think a lot of people have, is that everything else in the program had been going great, just hadn't been getting the wins on the field. So that's the only thing we were waiting to see. So it's almost like this year through these first 5 games, we're getting to see a little bit of, proof of concept from Neil Brown. And you finally are seeing the things that, I stated a little bit earlier that you were promised when he was hired that, had me over the moon as well. Like Coos talked about, I thought it was a home run too. And I think this year you're finally starting to see some of those things that you were promised with Neil Brown come to fruition. And maybe it just took him, more years than we expected it to get the culture right, like you said, to get the buy-in that he has this season, where he, finally looks like he's got, his formula down, or the players to be able to execute his formula. And, you mentioned it being running the football and defense, and that's definitely proven to be true. He's 22-5, I believe, at West Virginia when running for over 100, and 20-0 as a head coach, going all the way back to his time at Troy when his teams run for over 200 yards. So if he has a team that can play good defense and run the football, he can win some football games.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing you guys have taken a peek at the schedule. So obviously you guys are trying to just take one at a time and not get too optimistic, too hopeful. But at the same time, you can just look at them. And I'm not saying that they're automatic wins, because they're not, but definitely winnable, 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 winnable. And when I say winnable, I don't mean like have a shot at winning. I mean like should win these games up until Oklahoma. The next 4 are looking pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, before the season started, I picked us to lose to Texas Tech and to lose to TCU. We have now won both of those games. So my 7-5 record could easily turn into 9-3 now, right? If everything holds true. But like you said, Mark, even though they're winnable, this team is not built to blow teams out, I don't think, because of the style they play. So even though they're winnable, none of them are guarantees. I mean, even Houston. Houston played pretty decent against Texas Tech in the first half last week. So that game is not a gimme. There's not a gimme game on the schedule. I don't think the Big 12 has a gimme game this year. Because of the parity in the league. You can say the league's down, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of parity. So no game's a gimme, especially the way this team's built. So, but every game is winnable. The only game that I don't feel confident about is, like you said, Oklahoma. But you look at Cincinnati at home, BYU at home, UCF on the road is going to be a tough one because the bounce house is a tough place to play. We also have Houston next week. That should be a win, but it's at Houston. So, these road games, you never know. And, Dana Holgorsen has an extra week to prepare. That makes me a little nervous, because he's historically been pretty decent off a bye week, if I recall. I'm going off of memory, so I could be wrong.
I think so.
And then what? We got obviously Oklahoma. Then we got Oklahoma State at home. Again, they don't look very good this year, so that should be a win. Baylor on the road. Baylor doesn't look very good either to me. So it's very feasible. Well, let me back up. It's possible this team could actually finish 11 or 10-2 this year. I'm not predicting that, because I do think they'll probably lose a game they're probably not supposed to lose, at least one. But 10-2 is a good possibility.
Yeah, it seems like every year, for West Virginia, there's always one of those games that you don't see coming that gets you as a loss, unfortunately, like you said. So that's what I'm worried about. And also just the superstitious side of me. I keep seeing people say, they could be 7-1 going into UCF or 8-1 playing Oklahoma. And I just try and tell everybody to knock on wood right now, because I just want to take it, game by game. I know it's kind of cliche. We as fans, of course, can look ahead a little bit, but I just get nervous as a West Virginia fan, because I've seen it go, awry so many times in the past. But I certainly think they have a great chance to have, a really good season. They're probably going to be favored in a lot of these games, or at least be really close lines. And that wasn't the case, a while back. If you look at the difference in ESPN's FBI prediction for West Virginia's schedule 2 weeks ago versus what it is, now this week, it's two completely different stories. They had West Virginia barely getting to a bowl, sniffing it at all. And then now they've got them favored in the majority of those games. But it's kind of hard to take that. You got to take that with a grain of salt, considering they had West Virginia only has like a 20% chance to win versus TCU. So, but I digress on that. That's a whole different subject. As far as West Virginia's remaining season, I think, as you mentioned, playing the way they played, they're going to be in all of these games, but also it's a double-edged sword, because it's probably going to be, close games, as you mentioned, that they're going to have to win a lot of times, especially in these road games. And it's always tough to play on the road against a conference opponent. So you never know what could happen, but I certainly see West Virginia, I predicted them 8-4 prior to the season. I think that they'll at least hit that, and probably exceed that, if I'm being honest, and that's what I'm hoping to see.
So then if we've got Neil Brown, let's say he's turned the corner, he's doing a nice job, and then the job, I'm never going to say it that it's easy, but it becomes easier because you have credibility. You walk into a player's home and you have credibility of, okay, we went 9-3 last year, not 4-8 last year. And it just transfer portal and all of that becomes much easier because winning breeds credibility and vice versa. But looking at the landscape of the Big 12, certainly the expansion of the Big 12 was needed. It was necessary. It had to happen for the conference to survive. And now for the conference to compete at some level with the SEC and the Big 10, not saying that it's competing at the same level, but for it to be viable and to have college football playoff teams probably beyond the champion of the league, just by sheer volume. Brett Yormark, I don't think there can be any debate, made the right moves, securing what have been really good college football programs at various times in their history. Arizona State, Utah right now, Colorado is a complete wild card and on a positive lean right now, obviously with Dion. And as long as he's around, then it brings just relevance and attraction to the Big 12. But West Virginia is in a unique spot geographically. Now, it's not as isolated as it once was, but while the Big 12 has sustained itself by making all these additions, are these additions in the direction that the Big 12 has gone really good for this program long term?
My opinion, probably not. I still think the Big 12 needs to try to, at some point, needs to try to find some Eastern schools to put in with Cincinnati, UCF, and West Virginia. I mean, just the constant travel is going to continue to take a toll. I mean, I know we're not the only team now dealing with it. There's going to be teams in all conferences dealing with it, but West Virginia is not necessarily. We're not in the SEC or the Big Ten, so we don't have that $100 million they'll pay for it. And Ren Baker talks all the time about how travel is one of our biggest expenses. Or actually, it is their biggest expense. I think it's the way he worded it. But and that's something that's definitely high on his radar. So I think the Big 12 at some point should try to get some teams, whether even if it's UConn. UConn's closer than Texas. Any of the Texas schools. It's not necessarily right down the street, but it's closer, right? So they need to try to get some teams in the eastern part of the U.S. at some point. I think preferably some teams from the ACC if that whole thing goes crazy. But at the end of the day, I guess if the stability of the conference is the most important thing, we need to be in a Power 5 conference or Power 4, I guess now, conference as long as possible. And if adding Western teams helps us do that, then I guess it's the best move. But I just worry that long term, how long can these teams continue to compete, especially in non-Olympic sports, with the continuous travel to the middle and now even western part of the country? That's a concern for me.
Yeah, the non-Olympic sports is really the main issue that you got to worry about when you're looking at this with, coast-to-coast travel for a lot of these big conferences. Now, it's certainly going to be an issue, but just in regards, to football terms, I think, as Koo said, you'd like to see a little bit more focus on getting some East Coast teams involved. Maybe if something does happen with the ACC, you can restore some of those old rivalries, the VTs and Pitts of the world, get them into the conference. Maybe that would be awesome to see because, of course, I think that's what you're missing with the way conference expansion's gone is, of course, the regionality of college football has kind of gone by the wayside, and you're missing some of those classic rivalries that you used to always get, and you hate to see that. But as far as West Virginia's place in the new look Big 12, I liked it better than before that in the West Coast teams, before that was announced. Of course, that maybe complicates travel a little bit more now, but as far as West Virginia's chances to compete in that conference, I like it a lot on the football side. I think, just looking right now at the conference standings, say for the Pac-12 teams that'll be added to the conference, West Virginia is, at the top right now with Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas State. And we know Texas and Oklahoma will be gone. If you look at recruiting rankings, West Virginia is right there, among the top of the what will be the new Big 12 schools, and same goes with NIL as well. So I think West Virginia's in a place where they can compete. And as Coos mentioned, I think that's your main concern right now is keeping a seat at the table, to where if you win your conference, you got a chance to get into that college football playoff, especially after it expands. And so I'm kind of looking at the new look Big 12, where West Virginia has a chance to take hold of that conference and become a year in, year out competitor, much like they did in the Big East when some of those other programs left that conference in their latter years. In that conference, they were competing for the title, year in and year out every year. So maybe, just looking a little bit more on the bright side, West Virginia will be a little bit more competitive in the new Big 12 going forward, where they're more evenly matched across the board with some of these teams that'll be in there.
Agreed. Yeah, from a competitive standpoint, I do think they're in a good spot. I just worry about the long-term viability from an expense and cost and all that stuff. That's the only thing I worry about.
Well, the one thing this expansion's done from that standpoint is that West Virginia for the last decade has been the outlier in terms of geographic detachment from the rest of the conference. There's been no school in the country that's been detached from a conference geographically like West Virginia, just sitting out here in the eastern part of the United States, where everything else is going on in the plain states, the West, Texas, etc. That's completely different than any other school in the country. Well, now that's changed. There's a couple handfuls of schools, a quarter of the Big Ten's sitting on the West Coast, and on and on and on. UCF's by itself. So that no longer is the case just with West Virginia. I don't know if that really helps West Virginia. It's just another challenge for a lot of other schools as well, because I've wondered what is there a difficulty in selling a student athlete that is not in West Virginia, but is in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, that you want, and you can't sell them on being able to go to road games that are right around the corner, like you would be able to otherwise. And that possibly being difficult.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if there's any numbers you can put to that, but because our recruiting rankings have stayed pretty much the same since we joined the Big 12, but it can't help it, by any means, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, it's probably a challenge, but West Virginia, they face that challenge kind of regardless, not having a great home state recruiting base, I guess you could say. But then at the same time, of course, now it's going to change a little bit with Cincinnati involved and UCF. But before, you had the advantage of selling some of these East Coast players that they're going to get to play against these Midwestern teams, the big names, Texas, Oklahoma, which they won't get to play against them, but they'll still get to play against some other programs that they're other people that they know may be getting recruited around those areas aren't going to get to face, because they're likely going to Big Ten schools, MAC schools, something like that.
Guys, this Texas Oklahoma game coming up this Saturday is obviously, it's huge from the standpoint of just flat out wins and losses and college football playoff implications, but it's got this very odd situation attached to it that I cannot liken it to anything before in college football history. You got two teams that are leaving the conference, and the way things stand right now, most people believe, especially Texas, they are the cream of the crop, probably these two, and certainly Texas. And so in a normal year, if this was just Texas, Oklahoma, this would be like, go get them. This is the national spotlight. This is good for the Big 12. These two teams are on display. This is going to show, hey, and if they play some great classic game, it'll show maybe the losers even in it for a college football playoff appearance at the end of this whole deal. But it's almost like counterproductive. Does the Big 12 want to spotlight this game? It's going to be the most watched game in the Big 12, I would assume. I can't imagine another game surpassing this one. So it's got this strange spotlight that it should be celebrated, but it's the wrong two teams, and this is the wrong year. And so I just heard today that Brett Yormark is not going to the game, that Greg Sankey's going to the game.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, and Greg Yormark's getting a little bit of flack for that from SEC people, obviously, but the explanation I heard was that he didn't want to be a distraction because he felt like if he was there, a lot of the attention would be put on him and the awkwardness and all that stuff. And he didn't want to. He just wanted to stay away. And he felt like Sankey should be the one there because they're the future of his conference. So whether that's actually the reason or not, who knows? But it makes sense, I guess. He also could be worried of what Texas fans will say to him because of the remarks he made at Texas Tech about them beating Texas. But who knows?
That's a good point. I didn't even know that he wasn't going and the SEC commissioner was going. I just now that's news to me. But yeah, that's a crazy situation. And I think, as you mentioned, Mark, it's kind of weird for the conference. Probably don't want to promote this game necessarily, but I think that they're also looking down the line and they're a little bit leery and worried that they're going to end up with, seeing this matchup again in the Big 12 title game. And that would really be, a kick in the teeth on their way out, I guess, if it's Texas and Oklahoma playing for the Big 12 title in their final season. Kind of poetic justice, I guess, in a way, but maybe not if you're the Big 12.
Rivalries fuel college football. We all love them. You guys just experienced one, and you got to get some payback after losing pretty much on the final play of the game last year to Pitt. So I'm sure that was sweet, and to dominate that game and control that game and get a win in the backyard brawl. But it's not a conference game, of course. So you're in a conference where you really don't have any rivals and everything's spread all over the place. I'm sure, though, on the other hand, you guys are going to be good with winning 9-10 ball games and competing for conference championships, regardless of whether you're playing UCF or Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. But at the same time, I'm sure you miss some rivalries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing we've all been kind of begging for, I guess. That's why it's kind of bad to say, but we kind of want the ACC to collapse so we can get Pitt and Virginia Tech or whoever back in the league. I mean, it's a lot of Big 12 fans have gotten upset over the years because they're like, well, you West Virginia people, all y'all want to go back to the ACC all the time. I'm like, we don't really want to be in the ACC as much as we just want to play our rivals again. It means so much to this state and to this football program, and we miss it, man. That's what makes college football so special is those rivalries, and we've lost that.
Yeah, you do miss it. I mean, especially you look, these past couple of years have been lucky enough to go to the backyard brawl, both at Pittsburgh and then this year in Morgantown. And the atmosphere is just different for those type of games. You get more fan engagement, you get more people coming out. It's just a whole totally different vibe. And unfortunately, you just don't really have that with anyone in the conference that you're currently playing in. So, I'm like Coos, I'm not wishing for a conference's downfall necessarily, but, if VT and Pitt end up, becoming available and the Big 12 can scoop them up, that's only a good thing for West Virginia and brings us back something we've really been missing for, a decade now. At least we've been getting some of those back in the outer conference, with Pitt in recent years, and got them a few more years after a break here coming up, and then getting Penn State. So I think West Virginia is going to move away from playing two Power Fives. So ideally they're hoping to keep Pitt as, their Power Five opponent that they can play year in and year out. But who knows if that's even going to be, attainable with everything that's going on with this conference realignment and stuff. But, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that's the worst part of this conference realignment is you're losing a lot of those rivalries. You're losing West Virginia Pitt. You're going to lose Bedlam as well after this year. And it's just sad to see how much things have changed from, a lot of the games that you enjoyed watching and you looked forward to, especially when they were all played on that, final week in November, and you could see all these awesome, regional matchups. It does stink.
Yeah.
I've been racking my brain for the last couple of minutes, and I'm almost positive West Virginia is the only state in the country that has one major program and no pro sports teams. Got to be.
Arkansas, I think, is another.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was about to say, I knew there was at least one more. I couldn't remember who it was.
I've heard that. I've heard that conversation before, and somebody mentioned Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going all over the map, and I couldn't find anybody else. Okay. Yeah, Arkansas. You guys in Arkansas. So it's Nebraska. There you go.
There's another one.
Nebraska. So it's everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And just to go right along with that, That's like right now, it's what I've been telling people. People will say, "Hey, how you doing?" And right now, it seems like a lot of people are just more cheery. It's literally like throughout the state. I work in retail, so I see it a lot. It's like people's moods are literally better when West Virginia is doing good and they're winning
Yep.
games. So right now, it's like a great vibe around the state. People are more cheery. I'm like, all right, let's keep this going.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, we appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. West Virginia's off to a 4-1 start. We just thought, hey, this would be a good time to check in with our West Virginia contingent, the guys that know what's going on, to determine, okay, is this smoke and mirrors? Is this real? Is this going to blow up and be huge this season? I think sounds like the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but somewhere close to it being valid and real. I don't think anyone is trying to spin this as one of the best teams in the country, regardless of it could be 8-1 going to Oklahoma, which would be something else. But how is you guys both mentioned that the recruiting has pretty much been consistent despite a couple of disappointing seasons, that Neil Brown's been able to pretty much bring in the same level of recruits.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we haven't, our classes have ranged anywhere from, I think one year we had a top 25 class, but, anywhere from that typically 30 to 40 range, 35, 45 maybe at times. But that's where we've always been as a program, even before the Big 12 days. West Virginia's always been they have to recruit. West Virginia's a developmental program. They have to recruit guys,
Yeah.
develop them. And then by year 3 or 4, they're contributing a lot and they're starters, right? Now the transfer portal is obviously making that a little more difficult because they develop guys and then they leave. So that's kind of throwing a wrench into it. But I think Neil Brown's, with the help of Country Roads Trust, which is the West Virginia's collective, they're starting to figure out how to manage that, and they're kind of figuring out, we can't really go after talent necessarily. We have to go after guys who fit our culture, who fit what we're trying to do, fit certain skill sets, that kind of thing. I think they're kind of starting to tweak a little bit how they handle the portal. They brought on, I don't know how many people know this. I'm sure Jordan does, but they hired a general manager. West Virginia is one of only like 7 teams in the entire country that has a general manager on their football team. And we're the only one whose general manager not only has NFL scouting experience, but also NFL coaching experience. So we have a scout who's worked for the Dallas Cowboys for a long time, who knows what NFL talent looks like. So not only is he helping in the recruiting process and the transfer portal process, he's also helping the guys on the team tell them what they need to do better to get into the NFL. And I think that's something that us fans probably haven't spent enough time talking about, is how important that could be to this program. Because if other teams aren't doing it, then we should have a little bit of an advantage there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and ideally, you need that for West Virginia to get every advantage you can. And I think, as you mentioned, that's just as important now as high school recruiting. Really, is getting those transfers in that can contribute right away. Because as you mentioned, West Virginia is a developmental program. So, ideally, best case scenario for West Virginia right now is if you bring in a 20 to 23 person high school recruiting class, that you get 8 to 10 of those guys that can maybe help you right away. The rest of those guys you can develop. And so the other half of your class that's going to help you the next season is going to come from, the transfer portal. And as you mentioned, West Virginia's had issues since, transfer and NIL started, losing some of their better players at the end of every season. So especially now when you're successful and the way that you are, you kind of are worried about that at the end of this season. But I think West Virginia's NIL is in a better position. Yep. And one thing that I've noticed as well is, far as that transfer portal goes, is a strategy that I think our coaching staff is utilizing that's pretty smart. Is a lot of the transfers that they're bringing in are transfers that are multi-year transfers that may have already used up, they used up that one transfer to come to West Virginia and have multiple years remaining. So that way, if they want to transfer again, they would have to sit out a year. So if you're bringing in a transfer with multiple years remaining, you're kind of minimalizing the chances of that person, leaving your program again and you losing someone that's been a really good player for you. I think, the way that they've been burnt in the past with transfers out, they've kind of tried to hone in on that and bring in more players that can help them with multiple years of eligibility left. So that probably goes hand in hand with, the GM that you mentioned. That is really cool that West Virginia did that. And I just listened to Three Guys earlier today. He was on there and had some really cool stuff come out of that. So I was really impressed by him.
Yeah, I mean, when you if you can go into a living room of a kid and a parent and say, we've got a general manager on this team who can help your kid get to the NFL, I think that could speak volumes in the recruiting world and in the transfer portal world.
Yeah.
If you got a guy like a Devin Carter, for example, who's a 5th or 6th year senior, and his next step is the NFL, and if that's his goal, and you got a GM on staff who can help him get there. Yes, NIL is going to be very important. Don't get me wrong, but that could be just one more thing to help us keep and also to retain guys, to keep them from going to other teams. And they even talked about it. The GM talked about how important NIL was, and he's somewhat involved in that as much as he can be legally in the NIL piece, and he was talking about how kids are wanting $5,000 now just to take visits.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You have to pay kids to do official visits now, man. I mean, that's the craziest. It's just insane to me.
I did not know that until about a week ago. I heard that for the first time, and I went, whoa, wait a minute. Just to visit. So, yeah, these kids are going to be taking their official visits for sure, even if they commit somewhere.
Yep. and the NCAA passed a rule. They now get unlimited official visits.
Oh man, it's crazy. Well, and then I heard he also said that some of them as well will ask for, a bonus just to commit. You're like, okay, you want me to give a verbal commitment? All right, that's going to cost extra. It's crazy.
The verbal commit that they can flip on.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need to get to a place where some things change. And I don't begrudge anyone of making money for working. Absolutely. But it's, working. Yes.
Right.
And these have become jobs for these student athletes. I wish we could turn back the clock 50 years and then try to have more level-headed people in charge to bring us down a path that would be a little bit more wise, but we're not there, so it's not gonna go backwards. There needs to be some guardrails that are enforceable, that aren't just there in writing that everybody ignores, but are enforceable to some degree. So, that is crazy. Well, we got Jordan here from Country Roads, supplies the post game here at the Voice of College Football after each West Virginia game. Jordan, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you and Country Roads.
Appreciate that, Mark, and appreciate you inviting us on here for this little special edition stream here. It's been fun talking, some Mountaineers. Always fun to talk about them more when they're 4-1, but we talk about them plenty on our channel. So if you ever can't get enough Mountaineer sports content, just search Country Roads Webcast on YouTube. Give us a subscription there. We're putting out 2 podcast episodes a week that you can find there in video form, and then of course on the audio side on any podcast platform you like. As Mark mentioned, we're hosting the post game shows you'll find here on the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel and on the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel. And then in addition to that, we'll do a couple live streams a week as well, where we can chat with you guys, and then any other news that may come up in between. We'll do roster updates, recruiting updates, all kinds of stuff. So if you love the Mountaineers, definitely check us out, Country Roads Webcast here on YouTube. And if you want to follow us on social media, on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it nowadays, it's at WVU Country Roads, and then just Country Roads Webcast everywhere else. Appreciate that, Mark.
Folks, it's right there on the banner. We will keep it up there for a second, and we will certainly direct everyone there at WVU Country Roads on Twitter. Coos, appreciate you being here. And I want to let you know we're going to bring a couple other guys on here, but you guys are welcome to stay, go. I want to respect your time, but you guys are welcome to hang around. But Coos Walker with a tremendous YouTube channel here as well. Coos, let us know what you're working on here.
Yeah,
recently.
you can find me over at Kuz's Corner on YouTube. I also share if for anyone who's interested in college basketball, West Virginia basketball, I also have a channel that I share with a person who I think is coming on the show here in a minute, Mountaineer Paul, called Hoops from the Hills. Check that out. I'm on Twitter at Kuz206, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on them all. I'm not real active on all of them, but I do have accounts if you want to find me. Just did a pretty interesting video about West Virginia and the underdog story that they're kind of undergoing or undertaking right now, or in the middle of right now. So it was really kind of fun to make. So go check it out over on my channel if you want.
Great stuff. Again, you guys are welcome to hang out as long as you'd like and take part. The way this works best is for me to stay out of the way and let the experts talk some West Virginia football. So we got Ryan and Rush joining us here from the Ryan and Rush Show, and they get together here at the Voice of College Football every Wednesday at 8 Eastern. So, folks, you want to lock in on what Ryan and Rush have going on here, and then also on their channel. Guys, how you doing tonight?
What's up, Mark? What's up, Jordan? What's up, Coos? How are you guys doing?
What's up, man? How you? I'm good.
Doing good. How's it going, fellas?
Doing great. Doing great.
I'm doing great because I'm 4-1. We're 4-1.
There
So
you go.
I mean, I think we're all in a good mood.
Amen.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
So does that 4-1 mean anything? That's my opening question.
You want to lead off, Ryan?
Yeah. Does it mean? Yeah. I think it definitely means something because they've taken care of business. They've won games that over the first 4 years of the Neil Brown era, they haven't found a way to win. I mean, he lost 4 in a row to Texas Tech before the year. We all saw how the Pitt game ended last year, unfortunately. All 3 of these games, these last 3 games that they were able to grind out in the fourth quarter, they haven't found a way to win in the first 4 years of the Neil Brown era. So this team's clicking on all 3 phases. Special teams has been a pleasant surprise. The defense has held Pitt, Texas Tech, and TCU to 10 points combined in the second halves. And then the offense obviously has an identity of running the football behind this big veteran offensive line. So I don't think we're going anywhere.
Completely agree. So another thing that means something to this 4-1 as well is believe it or not, the loss against Penn State. That we all know that score was not a reflection of this game. And look how good Penn State is now. This might be Penn State's year to finally make the playoff and break through themselves. That loss is looking better and better, and was kind of that moral victory right this year. Whether you believe in moral victories or not, I tend to believe. And then, of course, you go these past 3 games, right? Is what we're talked about going into this year. Can Neil Brown get these monkeys off his back, right? Can he get the Pitt monkey off his back? Proved it. Can he get not only the Texas Tech, but win your Big 12 opener and start winning your home games again? Because when he won his home games, it was in 2020 when there were no fans in the stadium. So it didn't even matter, right? So got that monkey off his back. Okay. He has a really good record in Fort Worth. We do really well against TCU. So we got his Big 12 win on the road. So his next, I guess, checkbox to check off is being ranked, which it's a little fraudulent that they're not ranked yet. But, you may see with the bye week coming up, a couple of those other teams drop off and we move up there. So he's answering the questions we all had and what we thought potentially could be his last season coming in here. So, yeah, the 4-1 definitely means something, because another thing, we actually talked about it today on the Ryan and Rush show. We did a little Dana Holgorsen versus Neil Brown, kind of talking about both of them, with both one being the former head coach and one being the current head coach, obviously, with Neil Brown. Is Neil Brown, Ryan brought this up, that he tends to win later in seasons, right? Kind of start off in a deficit and come back and win. He's actually winning early now. Now, the question is, hopefully he holds on to that and keeps it going out through the season. But yes, this 4-1 means a lot.
What's also fun about getting a group of experts together on a particular team is I try to gauge, okay, who's on the high end in terms of who's the super crazy optimistic one, and then who's the pessimist. And do we know who that is? You guys also, I've been talking to Coos and been talking to Jordan here for a good hour, and it seems like they're pretty balanced. Do we have any outliers here?
No, I don't think so. I think we're all optimistic, but I think Rush and I said it point blank right after the win. This Houston game is going to be a hard game. Anybody that just thinks we're going to go down there and blow Dana out, I hate to break it to you. Dana is going to have something up his sleeve,
Oh, yeah.
especially with his back against the wall. They're talking hot seat. He wants to beat the Mountaineers. So we're cautiously optimistic. I think all West Virginia fans are, where our hearts have been broken enough over the years. So, but I think we're in a good spot at the same time.
I think. Oh, sorry, Mark.
No, I was
I
just
think
going to say.
Yeah. I think cautiously optimistic is the right phrase that Ryan was saying. Is, hey, West Virginia, we do great as underdogs, right? We love being the underdogs from a state, from a community, from a culture perspective. Bring it on. Count us out. That's when we perform our best. But can we perform as the favorite now? And that's why we can't get ahead of ourselves. What Ryan was saying, cautiously optimistic. I think that's the right term.
They can't they can't eat the rat poison, as Nick Saban.
Yeah, exactly. Stay away from the rat poison, Coos.
And they're banged up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about going down the line is depth, especially in the secondary safety and defensive back right there. I know they've only been playing, 3 safeties across those couple positions. So I'm worried about the injuries piling up. But, as you mentioned with that rat poison, that seems like we play really good and we're playing really good right now, but we're also the underdog. So I do worry about when we do get ranked and if that we get the big head and everything. And then because that's when it always seems like West Virginia has one of those games that sneaks up and bites them. So I'm a little bit leery of that. That's what I told Mark earlier. I said everyone's been talking, we'll be 7-1, 8-1. I'm like, hey, you knock on wood right now because I
chill
don't
out,
wanna,
everyone.
Yeah,
I'm knocking on wood.
Yep, there you go, Coos.
Especially when that Houston line comes out here on Sunday and it's going to be probably around 3. And that's when my stomach's going to drop and be like, oh, God, it's going to be one of these games where it comes right down to the wire against our former head ball coach.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate Mountaineer Paul joining us tonight. Mountaineer Paul, good to see you. Check out his YouTube channel, and we'll give you some further details. And he and Coos get together to talk basketball as well on a regular basis. I was just going to say a second ago that I heard a little Dana Hogerson this week, and he had some nice things to say about Neil Brown.
He did. And it's something that, I've been waiting all week to hear what Dana has to say. I think probably all of us were. I was like a kid on Christmas, because, Dana's always been complimentary of the other team, even FCS teams we played in the past. He always found something to point out about that team that was good. They were good at it. It was special teams, whatever, he always talked about all 3 sides of the ball, and he'd always find a side to pick that they were, if they were a bad team, that they were even good at. But, at the end of the day, I just can't help but think that Dana's, he's the one that said you can't win at West Virginia. You can't recruit at West Virginia. So I'm glad he took the high road. I'm sure there are going to be multiple chances for him to say things this week and a half-ish that we have left. But in my opinion, I heard a little bit of what you guys were talking about. One thing I will say about Houston is they have struggled mightily on both lines of scrimmage. And that's where we excel. And to me, if this game is going to get out of hand, that's going to be why. I do think the line is going to be a lot smaller, like Ryan was talking about. That's probably going to be the case because it's at Houston. It's a Thursday night. Could be a trap. There's a whole bunch of laundry list of things that you could talk about that we could be overlooking. And although I don't think Neil will let our guys get there, but Holmes and Conquo, the kid they had transfer in, it's like a Webu or however you say his last name. Those guys have not performed at all. They've been dominated on the line of scrimmage. And I truly think our offensive line is going to be able to, because look, don't look now, but they threw for a bunch of yards against Texas Tech last week. And something I think we're going to need to do in this game, like all the games, is play keep away. And I think we will. I think we're going to be able to in this game as long as our line is, 80 to 85% healthy. I know Wyatt had an eye. I think he's going to be fine. Haven't heard a whole bunch about Tomas, but I think he's going to be okay. They say it's a lower leg that could be, if he was going to play this week, he'd probably be out. So hopefully he's ready. If he's ready, I really feel good about how we're going to play in this football game. I think we control the line of scrimmage for sure.
This show is all about 4-1 and then the future, but I can't let this pass by since Dana Hogerson, and it is Houston week, or it's actually Dana week in a way for a lot of West Virginia fans. Anybody here think Dana Hogerson did a good job? Bad job, horrible. Where do we stand on Dana Holgerson's tenure?
I thought he did a good job. I know it kind of ended poorly, but I mean, you kind of just look at his body of work. He's currently the second second active winningest coach in the Big 12 behind Gundy at Oklahoma State, who's been there for like 3 decades, it feels like now. But I was deep diving a little bit today. I mean, we were ranked 69 weeks while he was here. I know it didn't end great, but I mean, we had some good moments during the Dana era. Some big wins. I mean, obviously everybody remembers the Clemson Orange Bowl win down in Miami, beating Baylor when they were in the top 5. We never could finish seasons under Dana for some reason, whether it was the Will Grier team that stumbled down the stretch in Stillwater and then lost the Kyler Murray game, like 60-59 or whatever it was, or the Geno Smith team in 2012 where we start out 5-0, we're in the top 5, and then we lose 5 in a row. So that was kind of the main thing with Dana is we just couldn't finish. But overall, I mean, we were a top 25 program for a good part of the Dana era.
And Neil's been the opposite. Neil finished the season strong, but he starts.
Yeah, I know.
So that's why this 4-1 is so exciting, because we're like, okay, if he can finish the season like he always has, you know, we could be in for something really cool. But of course, my brain won't let me go there too much because I'm like, yeah, but probably won't happen. So, you know,
I'm with you, Coos. A lot of yeah buts, but going back to Dana. Is Ryan and I say this all the time, is 2 things can be true, right? It could have been time for him to leave, time for a new regime to come in, but that does his body of work was fantastic. And I think there's something too about, you know, Ryan and I were students here when Dana was the coach. And there's something about when your football team's doing well, when you're favored a lot, feeling good, it really, he brought a sense of hope here and kind of continued what, you know, Rich Rod and, you know, Bill Stewart, the opinion on him might be a little interesting, but I mean, he did all right, but he continued a culture of winning and being a top 25 program, because you look at our football or basketball, we're a top 20, top 25 school. We are. And so I think that's why Neil Brown has just been in the position he is, because Dana Holgerson has created these expectations. And when it's taken year 5 for Neil to do what he's finally doing at 4-1, is I think a lot of us feel this should have happened a couple years ago. Thank goodness it's finally happening and we're fine. Hey, it happens now, and continue this, right? We'll eat our words if Neil Brown does well, because that's what we want West Virginia to win. But Dana did establish the culture and the expectations here. Maybe not established, but he continued the culture and expectations here of we're West Virginia. We should be winning.
Paul, I got a feeling your opinion's different.
Well, not totally different. I don't completely differ from it at all. I mean, I have a few different things I feel differently on, but anytime you get 5 or 6 people together, that's going to happen. I think he won with Bill Stewart's players, right? That's the first year, the Orange Bowl win. Those weren't his guys. That's number one. So although he coached the team, he didn't recruit the players. And that's something that is just a small asterisk to me. You start to look at it. When did he have? He had one other 10-win season. The rest of them were, you had a 4-win season. You had a few 8-win seasons in there. I don't know. For me, I just didn't like the way he recruited overall. I think that was my biggest issue with Dana. Why he was at West Virginia was he hit the portal hard before it was ever popular, and that's something that, you know, I think a lot of us feel like he left the cupboard bare and kind of like left in the middle of the night. And that's for me, that's probably why I hold a resentment, is because Neil had such a rebuilding job to do. You hear the term year 0. And a lot of that had to do with the way Dana recruited. He kind of recruited for no tomorrow.
Yep.
It was win now, who cares about the future? And that really caught up to him. And when he couldn't handle it anymore, then he left. And that's how I looked at it, more so than it was time for him to move on. Had he learned the lessons he learned at West Virginia beforehand, he was his first head coaching job. So maybe he learned those hard lessons at West Virginia, moved on to Houston, and I don't know what his philosophy has been there exactly. I haven't followed it as closely, but I do think that there were some things there that I didn't like. You know, the recruiting was definitely one of them. It was definitely, I mean, we've never been an elite recruiting school, but the types of players and the bodies that he favored were all skill guys. and cornerbacks. And he never really, we had virtually almost no defensive line. We had some good players, don't get me wrong. But they did, this team that we have right now reminds me more of West Virginia football than anything Dana ever put out there with that spread attack and sideline to sideline and throwing towards grass. And even though Neil has some of those principles and philosophies, you damn sure don't look like it, So not disagreeing, just a couple points that I think maybe some of us would differ on.
Yeah, I'm more in like your camp, Paul. I don't think by any means you can say it was a bad tenure at West Virginia when in his final season they're up by 18 or 17 on Oklahoma State, and if they close out that game, they're in the Big 12 championship. So you can't definitely say he did a bad job. But as you mentioned, the building your team year to year thing, it's all fine and well, but once you're on that hamster wheel, how can you ever step off? And so that's the issue you ran into, especially as you said, when he left Neil Brown with the bare cupboard. And that's one of the reasons why. So I think that it's really just more about fit. And I don't think he was really a great fit at West Virginia personality wise. I think he rubbed a lot of the media and some people the wrong way, former players even. So I think that just personality, culturally, everything. Neil Brown's more of a fit for West Virginia than Dana Holgorsen was. Does that mean Neil Brown's a better coach than Dana? I don't know, but I know for West Virginia, I would say he is.
I want to let
I'll
everyone
take
know
Dana in
that's
my
watching.
offensive meeting room any day of the week. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Mark.
X's
you're
and
good.
O's, he's
Yeah.
great, 100%.
No, just thought we had a quick break there to let everyone know that's watching that you can grab the link to everyone's platforms right there in the chat. So the links are right there. We make it easy for you. So we constantly tell people to go visit our guest platforms, but we make it easy by putting the link in the chat. So there's no excuse there. You just grab the link and you follow Coos, you follow Ryan and Rush, Country Roads, Mountaineer Paul, back to their platforms. A lot of people are going to be watching West Virginia football for the first time now that they're going to be playing in more important games going forward in their conference games, as opposed to we know that the hardcore West Virginia base is solid, and so there's a few million people are going to be watching every game regardless. But you're going to have people from around college football watching this team that haven't watched them the entire season, except maybe the Penn State game. Who are some players that you guys like in particular, want to spotlight that people should know about?
Who you want to start?
Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier. I mean,
No
I
kidding.
know.
That's where it starts.
I know offensive line's not the sexiest position to start with, but he's so good that the TCU guy had to hold him from blocking another guy. So Zach Frazier's my guy. I love watching that guy play each and every week.
Yeah, did you hear the comment? The GM, we were talking about the GM earlier. Did you hear the comment he made about Zach Frazier in his interview the other day?
No, I didn't.
He said that Zach Frazier will play 10 years in the NFL.
He could.
I could see it. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no doubt.
Didn't he say he was better than a starting NFL center like right now? Isn't that, or did I miss
Yeah,
it? I thought he said something along those lines.
I didn't. He said he was better than a certain. I didn't know the guy. He said he was some guy from Wisconsin, but I didn't know his name.
Yeah, it was a guy that he had like drafted with the Cowboys when he was with their organization, and he said Zach Frazier's probably better than he was when we drafted him. So
Probably either Frederick or Martin from Wisconsin, center for the Cowboys. Yeah,
Martin
Travis
sounds right.
Frederick. I thought it was Travis Frederick, but I could be
It
wrong.
may be. It may. I don't
It's about,
remember
it was
the
an
name.
I
arm
can
length.
remember.
Yeah.
If you remember,
Yeah.
Mark, Travis Frederick had the arm length issues coming out of college at
Yep.
Wisconsin. And that was the comparison that was being made to Zach Frazier's, that Zach is just above the average, like an inch and a half on arm length, as to where Frederick was like 30 inches, I think, in arm length. It was really, really short. And he's ended up having a good career, actually. But the arm length was the reason he slid in the draft. And I think that was the comparison being made between he and Zach. But if you want to go with a player, I'll say Beanie Bishop. I think Beanie Bishop is – man, look, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No,
I would love to pick a skill position guy or somebody more, more sexy. But Beanie Bishop is the unsung hero of this team to me.
Yeah.
He's really improved since game one. I think this back end against Penn State probably struggles in any game. But man, I would love to see how they played that passing attack would look against this defense how it's playing now. They had a lot to figure out in game one against a Big Ten offense that you just don't see every week, that you don't coach against every week. A lot of West Coast principles in that offense, and I think, I don't know. But anyway, Beanie Bishop is a guy who's just come on so strong, and he's dropped 6 picks. He could lead the country in picks, but he's getting his hands on balls, and he's locking guys down, even though it's in more of a zone-type coverage.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. I've got some stats I wanted to read on him that Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter, posted today on Twitter. He leads the Big 12 in passes defended with 9 and pass breakups with 6. No WVU defender the last 2 years had more than 4 the entire season. Pass breakups, that is. He has allowed just 14 catches and 29 total yards after the catch, even though he's been targeted 29 times. It's pretty darn good.
He's been impressive. That's for sure. I'm going to be the oddball and give somebody a name that they probably weren't expecting, but this is my guys. Some of y'all know that follow the show, and of course I've probably messaged y'all about him constantly as well, and that's Jaheim White. That's my guy. I think he's going to continue to play a bigger role as the season progresses. I believe he's averaging like 9 yards a carry right now on only 18 carries so far this season. Has the lone 100-yard rushing game by Mountaineer running back this season. And I think his role is just going to continue to expand, not only getting handoffs, but I think they're going to find creative ways to get him the ball out in space because he's just a guy that's going to be a playmaker. And I'm really excited about him, especially being a true freshman, developing as quickly as he is. And he brings something to the table that West Virginia hasn't had in a while with his home run ability. And it's just something different that defenses will need to game plan for. And it's something that this team's really going to need as they continue to try and improve this offense, especially when it comes to explosive plays. And if they're going to create more of those, I think the true freshman Jaheim White's going to be a reason that they're able to.
Absolutely.
You guys are forgetting about someone that's a dog, not the best player, not the best quarterback in the Big 12, but someone that will face 3 or 4 offensive linemen at any time and want to rip their heads off. And I know he's injured a couple of games, but Garrett Green is a baller. He is a dog. With a slight shout out to Nico holding it down for 2 games. Nico did a good job, but Garrett Green in there just gives this team an energy that just takes you up a notch. I think it was fantastic that he was able to start against TCU on the road because I don't know. I think Nico could have maybe pulled it off, but dude, to get that senior leadership experience, just going in there, going to TCU and just, hey, he's a really good game manager. He doesn't make mistakes. Garrett Green is just, he stays healthy. I have a lot of confidence. Mr. 14th best quarterback in the Big 12. Got it. Shout out Garrett Green.
And worst in the Power 5.
69th in Power 5.
Yeah, 69th in the Power 5. Lucky number 69. Good for you, Garrett Green.
I forgot all about that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, did you guys know we were preseason 14th?
Yeah, we got to keep harping on that. We got to stop talking about 10 and 2 and 9 and 3, man. We got to go back to 14.
Yeah.
That's
Keep
it.
that underdog spirit alive.
Yeah, can't give these guys any rat
Keep it.
poison.
Yeah, exactly. Stay away.
And that's bared itself over history, you know?
I'm looking at the stat sheet. So basically, I saw the Penn State game, but I'm not going to say that I locked in on it. I'm watching 2 games at the same time. No, that was Saturday. That was the Saturday night. I was thinking Thursday night because you guys played the Thursday night opener the year before. Yeah, Saturday night. So I'm watching like 3 games at the same time. So I'm not going to pretend to say that I took anything away from that game. And then I got to say, you were not my game of choice at any point the last few weeks. So we will see at what point that happens. So I am less than an expert on your team. So a couple things jump out as you guys are running down these players, and I appreciate Coos coming in with the Beanie Bishop advanced metrics. Garrett Green. So he's a baller. He's a gamer. He's tough. He's completing 52% of his passes. So is that going to who's to blame there?
It's combination of number one is our wide receiver play has not been good. They've had a lot of drops, and they're not getting separation. Now Garrett he's missed some throws though. You know, you can't put all the blame on them. There was a couple catches made in last week's game that really weren't great throws. The one to Cole Taylor comes to mind where he threw it behind him, and he had to. Cole Taylor just made a great catch across the middle. But Garrett's not the most accurate passer. I harken back. I keep hammering on this, and I've hammered on it in previous shows and in previous Twitter conversations. But he reminds me so much of Skylar Howard, man. Just the way he plays, his style. I mean, he's got moxie. You would see Tyler Howard get in a guy's face and talk some trash too. You know what I mean? They've got that the dog that you mentioned. He's got that. He's not the best thrower out there. Doesn't throw the most accurate ball. He just goes out and finds a way to get it done, man. And sometimes it has to be with his legs, Now, he's got to do and the GM talked about this in that interview. Garrett has got to do a better job of not getting hit. He's a small guy. I know Paul has talked about this ad nauseum on his show. He's a small guy, and he's prone to injury. And like the GM said, and Fabianich, I can't remember the guy's name. That's why I haven't said it. But the GM that we've been talking about.
I think that's right.
He talked about how when a big guy hits a little guy, it's pretty obvious that the risks are higher.
Physics takes over, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Yeah. The risk is higher to get injured. So he said, you're a little guy. You've got to protect yourself better. You got to learn to slide better, get out of bounds. Do not get hit because we need you, So if he can do that, if he can avoid injury, I really think he's going to get better and better with every game. And because keep in mind, he's not been the starting quarterback for this team, but 3 games now? So
yeah.
I mean, because last year he was last year, but he wasn't the guy to start the year. So he's only been the guy for 3 games now. So I think he's only going to get better and better. That's my opinion.
There were a few things.
I agree with that.
There were a few things that kept me from buying into the media prediction of 14th. And I'm not going to claim that I picked West Virginia to go 9-3 or light the world on fire. I think I picked 3-6 in the conference. I'm almost positive. But a few things came to mind. Number one, it's just a better recruited roster than any of the group of 5 teams that are coming into the league. Number one. Number two, I knew that you had coming back, as you mentioned, Zach Frazier and 3 of the best offensive linemen in the conference, if not beyond the conference. And then CJ Donaldson, who I was familiar with watching play quite a bit last year, was a really good running back. The thing that catches my eye there as I peruse the stats, because I go to you guys to fill in the blanks, is CJ's at 4.0 yards per carry, good offensive line, really good back, shouldn't equal 4 per carry unless it was like 1975 in the NFL. So why is he not averaging more like 5.5 or more?
That's a great question. Yeah.
8 or 9 in the box is killing him too, because we're not able to throw the ball, so they're just able to load up the box a lot of times. So he's getting the 4 yards per carry because it's the best he could manage. He's having 2 or 3 guys tackling him at once, and that's also kind of why I think his performance. Some people are talking about not being up to par for what we've seen in the past. I think he's a little banged up because all the hits he's been taking, having to run into that loaded box.
I think this bye week's great for him. I agree. I think he's a little banged up. Sometimes you need a little bit of a mental reset too. I mean, they're looking for him. And there's something to that because he is a great player. So I'm not too worried about CJ. I'm more worried about if he's injured than if he's kind of, not performing to what he's capable of performing. I believe that can turn around at any moment. All you need, right? It's any sport, in baseball, in basketball. Sometimes he just needs a break for like a 20-yard run and realize, okay, I got it, back out there. So he can do that at any time.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a guy today who's a West Virginia fan as well, and we were talking about the CJ thing, and he made a great point, and he said when CJ's in the game, he said if you'll notice when CJ's in the game, it's almost like the other team knows he's getting the ball. You know what I mean? So he was obviously talking about being an advocate for going to more 2-back sets. And giving the other running back the ball some so that to try to switch things up a bit. But I mean, that's a great point. I mean, pretty much every time he's in the game, they hand him the ball, right? So they kind of know what's coming. So he's kind of got, like Paul and others have mentioned, until they start passing the ball better, it's going to be a struggle probably to run. I mean, at least consistently. That's why we've had to rely on the quarterback so much.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of everything where he's banged up. He's gone through some personal stuff over the last couple of weeks as well that Neil's talked about. He hasn't played his best either. It's kind of like he should have had a touchdown on that one run at TCU. So it's a little bit of him. It's a little bit of we need to take a shot here and there over the top to loosen up this box so it's not an 8-9 man box. But he's also coming off the leg injury last year. So a little bit of everything. I think he's going to finish strong. I think the bye week's at the perfect time, like Rush said. I think like you guys were talking about, got to lean on Jaheim White a little bit more. I think that guy's got some fresh legs. He pops every time he gets that ball and something happens. 9 yards a carry. I'm not going to compare him to Sladen and Devine, but he kind of reminds me of when they used to throw Devine in there for Sladen a little bit with some fresh legs that can create some explosive plays.
I'll make a bold
That's a great
prediction that if
comparison.
Jaheim White gets as many carries as C.J. Donaldson, that he's not going to average 9 yards per carry.
Yeah,
That's a
that
great
is
point.
true. Yeah.
True.
He's very similar to me to a Deuce Vaughn type player. He's a very small in stature kind of player
Nice.
that can really hide behind the offensive line. That's extremely explosive. And one thing that hasn't been shown from him yet, not only is he a good pass catcher out of the backfield, he's an elite pass catcher out of the backfield. At the spot that he was at, and his quarterback is actually on the roster, but they played together. He's actually on our roster. They connected on, I want to say, close to 70 balls in his last high school season in the air. He's really good catching the passes out of the backfield. So is CJ. And there's not so much more I can say on the CJ thing. It's obvious he's run against 9, sometimes 10-man fronts. I saw some of that too. Safeties are all the way down to the box against CJ. But did you guys notice, one thing I wanted to ask you guys, did you notice his body language at times has been pretty bad? He's
Seemed
really
down.
been sulking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's really been
Yeah.
sulking a little bit. Well, it's maybe not sulking, but something's got him down. Maybe it's the lack of production, running into a wall so often. But he's really, second to the offensive line, the biggest reason we've been able to control the ball so much.
Yeah.
Even though he's not breaking off these explosive runs, 4 yards 3 times is a first down. And that's pretty much what we've been doing, mixed in with some passing plays, some quarterback runs. And that's why we're dominating time of possession this year. It's just such a punishing way to win games. And that's why, we're so beat up and everything. And I don't know if it's sustainable. In today's football, you think one more thing about CJ we forget is he's played less than 15 games at running back in his life,
Yeah.
not much less college football.
Yeah, great point. And that's something we fail to forget at times. He's learning on the job, basically.
Yeah. Well, and right now he's got probably about the same amount of carries I think that he had last year before his injury. So it's about to be a whole new workload that he hasn't met yet.
Yep.
We'll take on Joey's question, even though he called me a hater. That's all right. It seems like this is the week for me to be called a hater. I think about 8 fan bases have called me a hater just in the last day and a half. So we will just add West Virginia here. Joey asks, my 2 things are coaching first. Will Neil Brown fall back to old habits? And number 2 is, can the defense stand up with the injuries and be a next man up mentality?
So I think the Neil Brown, will he fall back into his old habits? Oh, he tries to. That Texas Tech game, need to run out the clock. Neil Brown will sometimes catch up and Neil Brown again. But hey, I think he realizes it's Mulligan, figures it out. Oh, let's do what we're doing well. He wants to go back to that air raid self. So if he falls back, hopefully it's for a series and then he gets kicked back into, oh, wait, this doesn't work again type of deal. Like, hey, I think I've only seen 2 or 3 screen passes this year. And they actually work because when you use them as more of a secondary, they're used to us running that and everything else. And then you throw a screen and goes for 7 yards. It's like, yeah, Neil, maybe if you don't have your screen pass as your priority play, look, it does work for you. So it is nice to see the improvements he's making. In terms of the defense, next man up mentality. Hey, they've been the heart and soul of this team. Leslie Frazier's done an unbelievable job as coordinator. that's the $1 million question. Can they sustain this? Because obviously with Lathan being out for good is they need, I think, injuries across the board, even on offense. I mean, it's football. It's a war of attrition. The question is, there is a little luck to this in terms of usually the healthiest team at the end of the season is doing the best. I mean, that's any level of football. So I think that's the $1 million question. But I even with Lathan being out, I think it's very possible for them, the defense, to keep stepping up and do great things, but you can't lose many more players.
Yeah.
And just to be more accurate on Joey's question, I guess I caught the back half of it. Those are his two concerns. So you guys are wide open to address whatever concerns you have.
Ben Cutter will be a freshman All-American by the end of the season. That's a prediction from me. I think he's that good. I think he's going to man that will spot. He's going to make mistakes. I loved him coming out of high school. He's a tackling machine. He's not laterally as good as Trey Lathan is. But I think there's enough time left in the season for him to really make a mark on this team. He's such a great gap fitter at linebacker. He's just so instinctually good at linebacker. And I think, give it 3-4 games, Ben Cutter will be a name that people talk about on this team. I'm a big, big fan of his. Kind of like I was James Hurd. I wish he hadn't been hurt. We've just been unfortunately decimated with those 4-star guys that came in, but
all at linebacker.
All at linebacker. But I really don't have a whole lot to say on the Neal thing. I think he's doing his best job this year, man. I'm just going to leave it at that with that because I'm really more proud of him than anything.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest concern is, can they handle success? Because they've not really done it, had to experience it yet, to be honest. That's my biggest concern.
I'm with you there, Kuz. Keep it, play from the favorite position.
Yep.
Yeah, I would piggyback off that because I mean, you just dive into the schedule. The 3 remaining home games: Oklahoma State, BYU, and Cincinnati. Those are games you're going to be favored and you're supposed to win. Can you deliver a game that you're supposed to win, not sneak up on a Texas Tech or a TCU? And then, like you said, this upcoming game against Dana, it's a game everybody's going to say, oh, we should blow them out. It's going to be a hard game. They're all going to be hard from here on out. So games that you're supposed to win, championship teams find a way to win. Who cares if you win by 1? Just find a way to get that thing in the win column. But I'm with you, Kuz. Handling success and surviving these last 7 games so that you get a chance to play in Dallas.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think, because right now, early in the season, we've been going off a lot of that motivation from being picked 14th. But at some point, people are going to stop doubting us and we're going to become, the hunted instead of, being the ones on the hunt. So I'm going to have to see how we deal with that. And I think, as you guys mentioned, it's a war of attrition when you get into, the late season battles here in conference. Everybody's going to be dealing with their injuries, and West Virginia already has a bunch, especially at that linebacker position, as you mentioned, and 1 season-ending injury at the safety position, 1 at the cornerback position. So secondary certainly can't afford any more injuries either. So that's what I'm most worried about. Is I think that they're able to deal with the injuries they have currently. As Paul mentioned, I think Ben Cutter is going to fill in for Trey Lathan well. And I think their style of play on the offensive side, where they dominate the time of possession, shouldn't make it an issue to where the defense is playing too many snaps that they're going to have to rely on reserves too much. And I think their starters are good at the secondary level. The defensive line doesn't matter. They've got a ton of depth there to rotate. So I think that they'll be able to survive there. My main concern would just be if any other additional injuries happen, especially in the back half of the defense.
Does anybody think Aubrey, let's say everything's everything and he is 85, 90% healthy. Does anybody think he's going to be able to get over this mentally? I know that's a speculative. I'm asking you to speculate on something that's kind of hard. But
that's what I'm worried about, because it's traumatic. Even if he doesn't
make it back.
Well, even if he doesn't realize that it's affecting him, it could subconsciously be affecting his play on the field,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Neal even alluded to that in his press conference. He and I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, there's some trauma involved in this here. Then, we're just going to see how he does, essentially. So I think Neal's already kind of prepared for that. And I think he's the type of guy, and he loves his guys enough that he'll give him that space and that time to, and let's be honest, guys, from an on-field perspective, dang it, man, Hershey McLaren and Marcus Floyd might be playing as good, if not better, than Aubrey Burks.
No doubt.
So I'm not now. Even though I want Aubrey to get well, obviously we need him. those guys have played well in place of him when they've when they've been in the game. So I'm not concerned about how they'll do, but we need him for we still need that depth because one of those guys could go down at any minute as well.
West Virginia at 4-1, bye week, and then a trip to Houston. And as Joey mentioned when we first jumped on here, and we talked about this during the offseason multiple times, why did the Big 12 not force Dana Hogerson in Houston to go to Morgantown? That would have been a great story. That would have been a great story. Let's go around the horn one more time, and just want to highlight everybody's platform. So let us know, and everyone here, where they can find you, and if you've got any parting shots on anything you'd like to deliver. And want to remind everyone that's watching as well, if you just jumped on here in the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the time frame, you can watch the complete video. It's going to post automatically and immediately when we are done. So definitely stick around and watch what you missed. So Jordan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. Definitely check us out, Country Roads Webcast on YouTube or any podcast platform you like, Apple, Google, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it, you can find us there. Game preview podcasts, game review podcasts for long form. Then also 2 live streams a week. One where we try and get your predictions for the games. The other where I update the snap counts from the previous week, injury updates, and I do a depth chart projection for the upcoming week. So that's a bit of the content you can catch regularly throughout the season. And then, of course, be back here at the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel and the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel, following each West Virginia game for the post-game shows. So that's kind of a preview of our content that you can get weekly throughout the season, and then not to mention anything else that may come up, recruiting updates, roster updates, etc. Cover WVU basketball as well. So be sure to check us out, Country Roads Webcast here on YouTube. Give us a subscription. And then I just wanted to say, also everyone that's on here, Ryan and Rush, Paul, Coos, enjoy all of your all's content. You guys are the best in the business when it comes to West Virginia sports. So everyone should definitely check them out as well. And then the last thing I want to say with Houston coming up on the schedule is just how awesome it's going to be to beat Dana Hogerson with a lot of West Virginia kids on the roster. Zach Frazier, Doug Nestor, Wyatt Milam, Hudson Clement, Sean Martin. You can go on down the list after Preston Fox, after Dana said what he said about not being able to win with, West Virginia recruits and West Virginia kids. So that's going to be sweet. And I can't wait to be back here to talk about it with Mountaineer Nation after West Virginia beats Houston in the West Virginia post-game show.
Nice.
Awesome. I love that closing, Jordan. I can't top that, man. You can find me on Coos's Corner, where I cover West Virginia football. I cover the Big 12 some. Talk a lot about conference realignment. You can find Paul and I on our basketball channel called Hoops from the Hills. Come check us out there. We talk a lot of West Virginia basketball. You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever, at Coos206. If you want to interact with me there, I welcome it. And Mark, I really appreciate you having me on, man. And I'll echo what Jordan said. All these guys on here are good at what they do, and I recommend you support them all, man, because they all work hard and are trying to perfect their crafts and are getting pretty darn close at it. So,
Paul.
Yeah, I think real quick, I'll point something out too. I think everybody here brings something different to the table, whether it be Coos is he's such a good play-by-play. It's why I think of him in my head as a play-by-play kind of guy. Really good at that. Ryan and Rush, you look how connected they are. They've got Don Nealon doing sponsorships or however you want to, coming on, promoting them. They've got, how connected. If you want some people that are connected to the university, and I really mean connected, we've got a guy that coached there between the two of them. Go check those guys out. They do a wonderful job. Jordan, in my opinion, is the most underrated West Virginia person that there is. He does such a good job keeping up with the roster. I'm all about edifying each other and not tearing each other down, right? I think that's how we get through the next level for all of us.
Absolutely.
My name is Mountaineer. Paul Talks Football. Just interviewed Steve Slayton last week, had Bryn Baker on the week before that, in contact with Patrick White and Noel Devine. Have them in my inbox. We're trying to work those things out. Those guys are extremely busy. If there's one trait I have is I'm extremely diligent when it comes to contacting people. It's probably a gift that I have. I don't let up. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it don't. But you will see the occasional good guest on the show. My cats like to jump behind me. And I also do Big 12 content as well. Try to anyway. But it's mostly a West Virginia-centric type show. So if that's your kind of thing, definitely check it out.
Ryan.
Yeah, you guys can find Rush and I over at the Ryan and Rush Show on Twitter, the X, whatever you want to call it, at Moneyline_Mac. Rush and I also host a Big 12 show over at the College Experience, and we also have a college basketball show over there. So we're at the point now where football and basketball are going to start intertwining. So we cover it both. Obviously, cover our Mountaineer basketball, and it's very close to both of us. And echo what you guys said. You guys all do a great job, and I am a subscriber to all your shows. So everybody watching out there, go subscribe to their channels. It's great Mountaineer coverage, and appreciate you having me on as always, Mark.
Absolutely. Rush, anything to add?
Yeah, let me shout out Jordan, Coos, Paul. You guys are incredible. Paul, I think you said it best. Like, all of us bring a little something different to the table. We absolutely love covering the Mountaineers, and hey, a lot of this stuff too, we put our own money into it, our own time. There's been opportunities and stuff of hanging out or doing different trips and stuff that we've had to say no to do this. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go behind the scenes, and I know all of us have put it in. It's something you don't appreciate till you try doing it yourself. And all of us here, very hardworking, especially Paul, especially Kuz, especially Jordan. You guys do absolutely great stuff. But yes, at Ryan and Rush Show, the X, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us on YouTube as well. You can find me at Rambling Rush on Twitter and Instagram as well. It's an honor to be here Mark. And hey, let's keep winning so we can do this again in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. Ryan and Rush, appreciate you. Jordan, thank you so much for all that you do for us. Kuz, you're awesome. We appreciate you. Paul, thank you so much for being here as well. I called on you 5 for a reason. So you guys, as Paul and others have expertly crafted, do a phenomenal job at what you do. So thank you so much for being here. And again, I just wanted to go to the source on this 4-1 start. And so I got what I was looking for. And so thank you so much for delivering. And we will see everyone back here after the game with Country Roads. And we got Ryan and Rush coming your way every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So again, the links to all the platforms are right there in the chat to make it easy for all of you to go check it out and subscribe on the various channels. All right, guys, appreciate it. We will see you next time.
Thank you, Mark.
See you guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Mountaineer.